At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast is now on YouTube. Go on YouTube and search Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast and click that subscribe button to never miss an episode. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast. This is a special, everybody. It's the last part, so I hope you've enjoyed it. But I am one of your hosts, Wrestling Chris G. I think I need a new name for this show, but that's another episode. On the other line with me is my competitive rival. It's good old Dougie Fresh. Dougie, my man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to kind of see how all this stuff finishes up, and just kind of see if they're able to put a nice little bow on this little
adventure
special.
Yeah. And apropos, I didn't even plan this, but I'm thinking about it now. The shirt that I'm wearing is a shirt that was given to me when I had gotten out of the hospital not too long ago, and it says, "I don't get older, I level up." And it's a Pokeball that at the bottom of the Pokeball it has Pikachu, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander, and up on top it has Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, and an older Pikachu holding a Pichu. And anybody that wants to see this shirt, all you got to do is Google it. It's a very popular shirt, but it's kind of apropos to this show that we're doing, because we literally started from humble beginnings of baby Pokemon, and now we're in the final forms where all of the Pokemon are kind of evolved, and Red is taking on the Pokédex challenge, and he's almost done. And will he complete it? We don't know, but we're about to find out, Doug.
I mean, the way they've been hyping up the whole, oh boy, finish the Pokédex for a old man whose prime is past him, you kind of hope that at least one of them is able to put a period at the end of that sentence.
Yeah. But yeah, outside of that, I don't have too much to talk about because we're kind of doing these episodes kind of back to back. Tonight's our second night getting all 4 of these episodes done. And I don't really have much to say. Do you have anything to say before we start this week's episode, bro?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited to get the ball rolling.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump on into this week's episode. So we start this episode with the continue, new game, and options button like we do every episode. And this one says player Red badges 8. So he has completed all 8 badges. Pokédex. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, which we saw, obviously, that he got the 8th badge.
Yes. And Pokédex is 113 Pokemon, and the time played on this is 23 hours and 2 minutes, which is almost 2 more hours of gameplay that has gone on since the last time that we were reviewing the episodes. So we start this off, and it looks like Red is walking through a cave, and I'm gonna start the epilogue like I do every episode as we're going through a nice little fast forwarding. But Red is like, after going through the victory road, I finally got to the Indigo Plateau, and we get a nice little spin around, and it looks like a big Pokemon school, Doug. just
A
like
little bit, yeah.
like a college. And he's like, waiting for me there were the strongest Pokemon trainers, the Elite Four. And it's at this point we see Bruno, we see what is it, Agatha, Lance.
Uh, Lance for sure.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna because I think I'm pretty sure it gives the names of these people real quick. So I'll actually name it. So we have L'Oreal, we have um let's see. Oh shit, it's going through them real quick. But we have L'Oreal, Bruno, Agatha, and Lance is who we have, and go through a big montage of all the Pokemon battles that Red encountered inside of all of these rooms. Now, I'm kind of disappointed the way that they made some of these rooms because these rooms look really, really tiny. I mean, they I mean, you go from these big ass Pokemon gyms, and I mean, even though in the game, yes, the rooms that you go to battle each of these Elite Four trainers are very small,
Hmm.
but come on, I mean, like at least kind of spruce it up for the cartoon. But yeah, we see him go through every single one of these battles, and the last one was Lapras doing his hyper beam on Dragonite, and he's like, I finally defeated the last of the Elite Four, the Dragon type user Lance. And Red is sitting there and he's gleaming, and you can see some tears fall out of his eyes, and he's like, all right. And Lance's like, I can't believe my Dragon type team has lost. But he goes up and he puts his hand on Red's shoulder. He's like, Red, you are now the Pokemon League champion. And then Red is like, oh my gosh. He's like, almost. And
Oh,
Red's
what a kick in the dick.
I know. And he's like, wait, what? He's like, the truth is there is still one person left for you to fight. He's like, and in his head, he's probably like, this is the Elite Four, not the Elite Five. I beat the Elite Four. I'm the champion now. And Red's like, he's like one more. He's like the current Pokemon League champion. And he walks through the final door, and he's like, and with that, I challenge the Pokemon League champion to a battle. And he walks up, and the final room is the biggest room in this whole entire Pokemon League. And
Well, no, come on, but that makes sense though.
I don't give a flying F. He walked through 4 rooms, which were tiny as shit. And we finally get up here, and who's up here? It's freaking Blue. And Blue is the Pokemon League champion because he has defeated the Pokemon League. And the Elite Four must be feeling down on their luck. They're like, man, we have lost twice. We need to train our Pokemon a little bit better. But
We are not having a good week.
not at all. And Blue is like, yo, Red, what's up? And he's like, ha ha. He's like, this is great. And it's at this point that we get straight into the episode. So, Doug, I will let you take over the beginning of this episode now that we are past the Pokemon League.
And Red's like, oh, so you're the Pokemon League champion that I have to beat. And Blue's like, of course. That's the natural way of things. I always have to be one step ahead of you. And he's like, I've completed the Pokédex and searched for the perfect Pokemon, and I've figured out the perfect combinations, and now I'm the king of the hill. And he's like, do you understand what that means, Red? He's like, now I'm gonna show you. And
some great animation in this scene.
No.
It's like they put like freaking thousands of dollars into this one scene.
He's like, I'm going to show you what it means to be the strongest Pokemon trainer in the world. And he throws out a Pokeball. And then the spinning of the Pokeball brings us right into the battle. And we see that Red has his Jolteon use Thunder. And it it's aiming for Pidgeot. And Pidgeot's able to fly away. And then we see Scyther battling with an Alakazam. And he's like, Red's like, well, the battle was back and forth between me and Blue. You know, I was up, he was down. He was down, I was up. You know, and we see Jolteon get thrown into a wall by Blastoise's tackle. That Blastoise, of course, is Blue's Squirtle. And we see that with that defeat, Red is down to one Pokemon.
Yes. And Blue, of course, the whole Pokemon battle, it seems, has been talking shit. He's like, just like I thought, you would never defeat me. And Red's like, Blue, this isn't over yet. He's like, oh, you still got one left? He's like, all right.
This pissed me off because he sounded surprised.
For real. And let me point this out. And if they're holding true to the Pokemon game, when you're facing the Elite Four, you cannot heal your Pokemon. You have to defeat all four Elite Four members. And if you're down to one final Pokemon at the end of the first battle, that one Pokemon needs to take you through the other three, which in this, Red seems to have been using his Pokemon. Blue is refreshed. Blue is the champion. His Pokemon are healed. He is fighting damaged Pokemon and being challenged. So, I mean, at this point, in my head, Red should be able, like, with like his Pokemon healed, he should be able to defeat Blue hands down. Am I wrong, Doug?
I mean, you're not wrong, but that also wouldn't lead for much drama.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
If Red just sneezed and the battle was over. Like,
but all right. So Red sends out his Charizard, and Charizard is blaring his fire, and Blue is like, heh, that brings back memories to our first Pokemon fight. Because it's now down to Blastoise versus Charizard. And it was at this point, a long time ago, where we get the flashback of Squirtle using Bubble on Charmander and freaking beating it. And Charizard has not forgotten. And Red hasn't either.
And Blue says, well, okay, but let's hope that your Charizard has evolved at least far enough to make this interesting. And Red sends out Charizard with a Mega Punch, and pardon me.
Blue he goes with a Mega Punch, and Blastoise literally takes the punch to the chin, and Blue's like, my Blastoise isn't that weak. And he's like, Charizard, retreat now.
and Blue sends up a Hydro Pump, and Charizard's caught flush with the second barrel, and he's down to like one good hit left, and Blue's like, oh, he took that, didn't he? And Red sends out Charizard with a Fire Spin, and the flames circle Blastoise, and he's taking him down with a weak move.
Yep, and then Charizard uses Fire Blast. I love the Japanese writing of the Fire Blast every time a Pokemon uses it.
Yeah, and it hits Blastoise flush, and we get a puff of smoke, And when the smoke clears, we see the Blastoise is still standing, but then we zoom in a little bit close to Blue, and then we just see Blastoise just fall. And we see the HP go down, and Charizard has won, and Red's hugging on Charizard's snout, and Blue's like, well, damn, it's really over. I was trying so hard. I was at the top of the Pokemon League, and now I'm not. And it's like, I was a transitional champion.
He's like, my reign is already over. and and people are like, okay, so he won. That's the end of the podcast. No, because we're only 4 minutes and 55 seconds into this episode, and this episode is 25 minutes. We got 20 more minutes. And what else can happen in an episode when Red has won the Pokemon League?
Oh, they'll show you.
So, but Blue reminisces and he's like, why did I lose? He's like, I raised my Pokemon fine. And then Red comes in and he's like, Blue. And he's like, darn it. He's like, all right, well, you're the new Pokemon League champion, Red. He's like, though I don't like to admit it. And Red's like, thanks. And then we have Professor Oak show up, who seems like he's been watching the whole battle the entire time. And he's like, congratulations on the Pokemon League conquest from the bottom of my heart. And Blue's like, Gramps. And Red's like, Professor Oak. He's like, you've grown so much since you first got Charmander and went out to fill the Pokédex. And he's like,
and then
you've really grown up, Red.
And then he stops and he looks at Blue and he's like, when I heard that you finally beat the Elite Four, I flew out here to witness your crowning moment, and by the time I got here, I have just enough time to watch you lose it. And Blue, he's hurt. And he's like, you just got here too late. That's on you. And he's like, but seriously, do you understand why you lost? And he's like, I just ran into some bad luck. If I had another match with him, I would win it without breaking a sweat. And Oak is like, no.
It's because you forgotten how to treat your Pokemon with trust and love.
And Blue's like, man. And Blue's like, I wouldn't have any problems if that were enough, to be honest. And he turns to Red and is kind of immediately kind of throwing some dirt on him, because he's like, you understand that your victory was not just at your own hand, right? And Red's like, yeah, I try to remind myself of that constantly, because Red understands that the partnership between Pokemon and trainers
is
of the utmost importance. Yeah.
And then Professor Oak comes in and he's like, well then, Red, come with me. And he walks through the final door. Charizard flies down and he calls back his Charizard. And then we skip a middle part of the scene and we are now in the Hall of Fame. And Red's like, what is this room? He's like, this is the floor where all the previous Pokemon League trainers and their Pokemon are recorded and honored. So where the hell is Blue? Because Blue should be in this room as well too. Because I mean, he conquered the Pokemon League.
No, but he already had his. I imagine he came down from his ceremony, and they're like, "Oh, you have a new challenger already," and it was Red.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
That's because when Red walked through the door, Blue was just standing there waiting for him.
That is
so. As a matter of fact, I would imagine as soon as Blue won to become the top dog. They were like, okay, let's get up there and record your winnings because there's a kid like right behind you, and he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's exactly what he did. And Professor Oak wanted to be there to congratulate his grandson, but he got there to find out that his grandson is a loser. But Professor Oak then goes, Pokemon trainers call the honor of being recorded here, being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Red's like, the Pokemon Hall of Fame. And he's like, Red, you've become a Pokemon League champion after many difficult fights. And then I'm looking at the wall, but he's like, let's record all of your Pokemon at this point. Side note, when I played red, blue, and yellow, and I did have a green version because I couldn't wait for the yellow version to come out at one point. But and because my dad bought it for me off of eBay, which was probably a bootleg copy of the game, to be honest. But he bought it for me, and when I beat the Pokemon League for the first time, I was so mad because the Pokemon that I had on my belt were not the Pokemon that I wanted to be recorded into any game. I just put them in there so I can beat the Pokemon League, but it wasn't the Pokemon that I wanted. That I went back out and I trained the mess out of my Pokemon so I can beat the Pokemon League the proper way to get those Pokemon recorded into the Pokemon League, bro.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times because I like mastered Ruby to the point where I would just I would put the experience share item on the sixth Pokemon on my belt as I was like going through and evolving them.
Oh, okay.
So like I can't tell you how many times my Pokemon went in and five of them were completely the same, and the sixth one was always different.
All right. Well, did you ever defeat the Pokemon League with the Navy bunch?
No.
No. Oh, okay. I haven't either, but I see people online do different challenges. Like, I've actually seen people play the Pokemon Red and Blue version based off of the show that we're doing right now. And they say, can you defeat the Pokemon League using the Pokemon that Red had? Or can you defeat the Pokemon League um, with only with using the Pokemon that Red had inside of the comic books, or that Ash had, or can you defeat the Pokemon League with the Pokemon that Ash had when he was like just different scenarios, like when Ash was going in to fight the Pokemon League? Can you use his Pokemon to defeat it? Like different things like that.
And I'm looking at Red's little well, not little, but Red's team, and I don't know, man. I mean, obviously Charizard is the workhorse, and Lapras is special, and Jolteon, but he's got a
Yeah,
Persian, a Scyther, and a Dotrio. It's like that's not exactly a
that's
murderer's row.
no, it's not. But I mean, so he has a bird type, a fire type, an electric, a water, grass type. Well, no, not even a grass type, a bug type, and a normal type, which is the Pershing. So his Pokemon recorded in here. I mean, he has a variation of all of the different types of Pokemon he can use, but I don't know if I could beat the Pokemon League using those unless they're like top level,
Well,
bro.
unless I was just able to just mow through everybody with like my Charizard.
That's true. But then you better make sure that you have a bunch of super potions and stuff, because anytime I will fight the Pokemon League, that's the one I had revives and I had super potions. So after I finish each battle, I can go and heal my Pokemon to the best of my ability. And whatever that item was back in the game where you can put your Pokemon's power points back up. so you don't lose out on some of the like big moves that you can use in the game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think it was like PP up or something like that. But Professor Oak then goes on to congratulate. He's like, "Congratulations on getting into the Pokemon Hall of Fame." And Red's like, "Thank you." And then his photo, which is the weirdest one of them all. You see one final flash on the big jumbotron screen, and Red's photo jumps into the middle of all of the Pokemon that he used in the Pokemon League, and it's just him. And then that, I'm sure that's the picture that gets printed and gets framed and gets put into the Pokemon Hall of Fame. And he's he's like, does someone like me really deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Probably not, if you're asking that question. And Professor Oak is like, you idiot, you got here fair and square. Like Professor Oak, even in this version, is freaking like he is outspoken, like truly. And I love it.
I mean, but it's fair though. He's like, you didn't just win here by complete luck. And he's like, all right. And then we see another save screen, and we see 8 badges, 113 Pokemon, and 24 hours and 31 minutes played.
Which I kind of feel like they're subliminally telling you that this game, if you mow through it, like without giving another care in the world, that you can beat this game in 1 day and 31 minutes.
Shenanigans.
So, I mean, you would have to really grind. But
not sleep.
Yeah. But we go straight from that. So you're like, oh, okay. So we're 8 minutes into the episode, and then he's won the Pokemon League. He saved the game, and we're back at the continued new game and options screen. And he goes back in and he continues. Doug, I'm gonna have you kind of mow through the next few minutes of this scene.
So he's like, even though I'm the ultimate champion, I still have to continue my journey of completing the Pokédex. And we see him battling an Arbok with his Persian, and he catches it with a Great Ball. He's riding his Lapras, and they come across the Tentacool, and we see a cute little Pikachu, just out in the field. Just apparently just gets caught with no problem. He's staring at a Chansey, and he's looking at a rock or what's the pink thing?
It's food.
Is it a berry?
It's just labeled as food or a rock. He's in the Safari Zone.
Gotcha. And the Chansey gets bored and starts to walk away. And he's like, "Oh shit!" And we find out that he tracked it down with a Safari Ball, and then we see that he is confronting an Articuno, a Rapidash, a Zapdos with a Tauros, and a Moltres with his Charizard, and he catches those 3 with Ultra Balls.
Yes. And have you ever tried to catch one of the 3 legendary Pokemon birds with a regular Pokeball?
No, I don't think I would be that patient. I think if I got to that point in the game, I would have the Master Ball cheat.
Yeah, me too. Same. But
because I can't guarantee that my Pokemon wouldn't just 1 or 2 shot it.
Yeah, and that's a problem that I had. Because when you fight the legendary birds, at this point, your Pokemon are pretty much almost maxed out at this point.
Right.
Or your main bunch. And you literally have to train your Pokemon in order to be able to fight these birds the proper way without killing him, because I'd be scared to use my Charizard at this point. Like I would need like a second Charizard or to get a different version of the of like if I'm playing red to have a blue version and trade over like a lower level Charizard or something just for me to be able to get these birds. Like
Right.
I'd be so scared.
Because, at that point, by the time you're confronting the birds, you've probably got, a handful of HMs and some TMs, and, you're probably, well into 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
So you're into like one shot territory.
So
You don't get no redos
no, not at all. So
unless you immediately shut the game off.
but the next scene is Red kind of he's growing up, by the way, but he's tired. He's leaning next to his Charizard inside of a cave, and he walks back into Professor Oak's office immediately after in another scene, and he's like, Professor Oak, I did it. I completed the ultimate Pokédex. And he's like, Professor Oak? And no joke, my original thought, so he's walking into an empty building and then his assistant is walking in right behind him. And she's like, oh, Red. I immediately got thoughts of, oh my gosh, Professor Oak passed away before he can complete the
Yeah.
Pokédex. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Did you get those vibes too?
Same thought. Like I was like, oh damn, he did say he was a feeble old man.
And yeah, because he's like, where's Professor Oak? And she looks down. She's like, about that. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. And then we immediately go to a different scene, and Red is charging through a door, and he's like, "Are you okay, Green?" Or I'm sorry, not Green. Are you okay, Blue? And Blue is in a bed, and he is like all achy and all in pain, and he's in a sling. He's all bandaged up, and some shit went down with freaking Blue. Doug?
And Oak's like, oh, he'll be fine as long as he stays in bed. Red sits down and he's like, what happened? And he's like, and Green's like, I was battling some wild Pokemon in the Cerulean cave, and my Blastoise got knocked off its feet, and I was crushed basically, and Red's kind of like, Blastoise got knocked off its feet. Holy shit!
Yeah.
And
well, not even crushed. He said he was pinned. He said his Blastoise got blasted right into him, and Blastoise fell just right on top of him. Like, ouch.
And pardon me, Red's like, well, what kind of Pokemon was it? And Blue's like, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it before. And this is when Red kind of does a humble brag, because Oak is like, well, was your Pokedex able to like record an image? And Blue's like, oh, well, about that, and he pulls out his Pokedex, and it's it's dented and crushed, and it's done basically. And Fred's like, well, it's funny you mention that because I kind of went and finished it.
He's like, yeah, I caught all 149 Pokemon and finished the Pokédex, which is a weird number to say that you completed.
Right, 149. Like, that doesn't seem. But anyway, and he kind of gives Oak his Pokédex, and after Oak kind of has a, like, oh my god, he actually did it. Somebody actually did it. I can die happy. It's fine. And he's kind of scrolling through, and he looks at Blue, and he's like, what kind of attacks did he use? We can narrow it down. And Blue is like, well, he used Confusion and Barrier. And Oak's like, well, that kind of sounds like a psychic type. And they're just scrolling through all the psychic types. And Blue basically should have said, if I would have gotten beat up by an Executor, don't you think if I got beat up by an executor, do you really think I would be in this goddamn bed?
Do you really think an executor would blow my Blastoise back? I was a poke. I was a goddamn Pokemon League champion for 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes, exactly.
But
And Oak's kind of like, well, if that's the case, then there must be a totally new Pokemon, 150, if you will.
I know. And Blue had enough nerve to look over at Red. He's like, "Hey, Red, did you really catch them all?" And he's like,
Bitch,
"Yeah."
motherfucker.
He's like, "Then how come the Pokemon that defeated me isn't among this list?" He's like, "Strange, isn't it?" He's like, "It looks like there's a 150th Pokemon." Huh. He's
And
like, in
then,
other words, what Blue fought was a totally brand new Pokemon.
Oak looks at Red and he's like, I know you just got back and you literally sat down like 5 minutes ago, but would you mind going back in that cave and helping out and figuring out the Pokemon that knocked my idiot grandson on his ass?
Wouldn't you, as a professor, want to go to that cave with Red to see
He's a
this?
feeble old man.
I don't care. He walked his butt all the way to the Pokemon League.
He didn't walk. He took a flight.
Then take a freaking flight over to the Cerulean cave. But of course,
Private property.
but Red's like, of course, I want to finish that ultimate Pokédex. And Blue's like, you can't. Don't go, Red. He's like, Blue, why are you stopping me? He's like, he's too strong. If I couldn't control it.
Like, motherfucker, I just wiped the floor with you. Who are you? Yeah, you couldn't stop him. Anyway, I would have punched him in the nose.
He said, Red, it's impossible for you to since I couldn't. And
the way Blue said that kind of flashed some things in Red's mind, and he's like, I've heard something similar to what Blue just said.
And he remembers reading it in that book in that abandoned Pokemon mansion.
And Blue's kind of like, hey, pay attention, Earth to Space Cadet. And Red's like, look, if I don't go, we're not gonna know, and you're just gonna be laying here helpless anyway.
With a boo-boo face.
Boo-boo face, exactly. And Blue's like, I guess you got a point. And Blue's like, if I'm being honest, I wanted to be the one to catch that Pokemon. Just like you wanted to have a longer reign at the top of the Pokemon League. But
well, he's like, if I had a Pokemon that strong, I could finally defeat you. So he's still in agony that he can't beat Red. Like, all you had to do was train some of your Pokemon. He only has 6 Pokemon out of the 149 that are a decent level. I mean, we saw that.
And before he flops himself down on the bed again, he's like, I was thinking about that when I walked into that cave. I was thinking about catching strong Pokemon and coming back and kicking that ass. And Oak stands up and is like, well, if that's the case, this Pokemon must have been super strong. And he looks at Red and he's like, come on, we have to go prepare. So for a second, you're thinking, oh, shit, maybe the old man is going to get up and go. And we're then brought back to the Pokemon Sanctuary that Mr. Fuji's running with Ren. And she walks up as Fuji puts down a plate of food for a Vulpix. And Ren says, have you heard the rumors? Celadon Cave? And Fuji's like, no, what are the rumors? And she's like, there's a strong wild Pokemon that has suddenly appeared there. And
it seems to have it seems to have defeated a recent Pokemon League champion. And Fuji's like, did they say anything about its type? And she's like, they're thinking it might be a psychic type.
And Cubone's loving the head rubs, and we see Vulpix has polished off that bowl of food, and Fuji's like a psychic type, and he looks out the window. He's like,
Could it
could
be?
it be that he's alive? And we, pardon me, then we're flashed back to the lab, and he's like, well then, I'll see how your Pokemon are doing. And Oak's like, thanks, I'm counting on you. And um, Oak picks up the box with the gems that Fuji gave Red for saving him. And he's like, what are these stones? And Red's kind of like, to be honest with you, I forgot I had them. He didn't say that, but he's like, I'm not really sure. Because I forgot he had them. Because I forgot that you had mentioned that as we were wrapping up last night. And Red's like, to be honest, I don't know either. He's like, you don't know? He's like, when did you get them? And he's like, I got them from an old guy in Lavender Town, name of Mr. Fuji, said I would figure out what they were for sooner or later. And Oak's like, Fuji? Sitting on the edge of the cliff here, mission, and he's having flashbacks of the diary in the mansion. And he's like, right, it was in the Pokemon Mansion. He busts in, and he's like, Professor Oak, I've had a brainstorm. I had a thought that I had to say. I couldn't keep it in any longer. It would come leaking out of my ears. And he said, I went to the Pokemon Mansion and I found someone's diary
about a Pokemon that's too strong to control.
And Oak's like, you found a diary. And then we get kind of narration on dates. July 5th in South Africa, the new Pokemon is discovered deep in the jungle. And pardon me.
We christened the newly discovered Pokemon Mew.
Everybody who's watching this go, oh shit. And that was on July 10th. And February 6th, Mew gave birth. And we named the newborn Mewtwo. And everybody goes, oh shit again. And Red's like, Mewtwo. And September, pardon me, September 1st, Mewtwo is far too powerful. And we see kind of similar imagery to the
Pokemon
movie, which had me all kind of messed up because I was like, where does this fall in the timeline?
And he's like, could Mewtwo be the Pokemon that beat Blue? And Professor Oak is like, I see. He's like, that diary might be Professor Fuji's. He's like, Professor Fuji's?
Professor Fuji?
He's like, it's an old story, but Professor Fuji was a high-ranking Pokemon researcher. And he's like, oh. He's like, soon after. He's like, soon after the new Pokemon was discovered, his research turned to heresy.
Basically, he turned to the dark side.
Yep. And Red is like, why? And Professor Oak is like, he's like, he tried to create a strong Pokemon artificially. He's like, then that's Mewtwo. He's like, I can't be sure, but there's a chance. And he's like, huh. He's like, and the old guy who gave you this stone is Professor Fuji. And he picks up both of those stones. He's like, don't the names just happen to be the same?
Like, don't be stupid.
Yeah, I almost like palmed my forehead when I heard this. I was like, come on, Red. He's like, my foundation is this stone. Having analyzed it, I know the stones are exchanging energy. And he's like, huh?
Red's just totally confused. And he's like, you should have Charizard hold this stone. And he holds up the larger one. And
like, one of these stones has a strong reaction to Charizard.
Like, it's an old memory, but I remember this being something about Fuji's research, and they got and folks like this is it. Have Charizard carry one of these stones, and
you hold on to the other. And he's like, I've got it. And then it's at this point that Ray gets on his bike like he always does. And he's off to set off to the Cerulean Cave to catch the 150th Pokemon, the last Pokemon, which this still doesn't seem right because they're talking about him getting that Mr. Fuji saw Mew, right?
right.
And that Mewtwo was artificially made from Mew. So if he's going to catch Mewtwo, where is Mew 1?
Yeah, we don't realize that until there's 30 seconds left in the episode.
I know. But he's riding his bike. He's like, I'm going to go catch that last Pokemon. And he gets onto a bridge and then he sees the cave. And then we
flash back to the sanctuary and Mr. Fuji's reading a book in his office and we hear Ren go, Mr. Fuji, there's trouble. And he's like, And he's like, they've seen Red heading towards the Cerulean Cave.
Yeah, he's like,
and Fuji's like, is Red going to be that dumb to try to go catch him?
And we flash straight from that to him on top of Lapras, and he's gone through the entire cave, and at the very end of the cave, we get Mewtwo, and Mewtwo is just standing there, and Mewtwo, just one big growl. He just jumps forward like a rabbit. He's like, ah! And Red's like, you must be Mewtwo. I will catch you.
He throws out a Gengar. And we flash to Ren, and Ren is Red gonna be okay? And we see Red telling Gengar to use Blizzard, but he switched to Articuno, which we didn't fucking see.
Yeah, because his Pokemon are just getting mowed down, and we see Mewtwo get covered in ice, and then it uses the recover move and then throws up what looks like a psychic attack and just beams Articuno straight in the face, and Articuno just falls. And he's like,
Red goes, not even a legendary Pokemon can compete with him. Pardon me.
And Mr. Fuji's like, Red's Pokemon probably don't stand a chance at all. He's like, if he has any chance of winning, he's like, I've only got you to rely on now. And we're back with Red. And Red is looking at his Pokeball and his reflection in the Pokeball. And he's like, Charizard, go! And he throws Charizard out. Charizard comes. It looks like Charizard has grown and has been eaten well. And he's now about 10 feet tall and just looking all sorts of just macho. And we, excuse me, we go back to Mr. Fuji, and Miss Fuji is like, back then. He's like,
flashes to when he saved him from Team Rocket in the tower.
Yep. And he's like, I'm betting on his honesty. And we go back to Red, and Red's like, Fire Blast. And freaking, I love it when Charizard does Fire Blast, because every single time he does it, it's badass. And freaking Mewtwo takes it to the chin, and he's like, it's an old legend from Kalos. And he's like, if there's a strong bond between a trainer and his Charizard, that itself will be used as a power. And we see freaking Charizard get mowed down with a psychic attack, and Red is like, don't worry about me, Charizard. And he's like, go for it. And Charizard looks back and he's like, rah! He's like, go in for a slash attack. And Mewtwo uses the barrier attack again, but Charizard freaking slashes the barrier. But then Mewtwo causes a barrier around Charizard and just blows it back. And just like Blastoise blew into blue, freaking Red gets mowed down by Charizard. But luckily there was water right there. So they both hit the water and they're flying down. Doug, take the wheel, my brother.
Well, apparently Red is fucking unbreakable because at one point from an attack, Charizard got knocked out of the air, and Red went under him like he was catching a goddamn football.
I know, for real.
Um, and nothing happened. So yeah, they're going down through the water. Charizard and Red are, and Red's like, "Damn, nothing I'm doing here is working." And but he looks up and he's like, "But Charizard seems determined, so I'm not going to give up either." And pardon me, that's when we hear another narration from Fuji, and he's like, "If that legend is true, the 2 stones I gave him will potentially give them a strong power." And
He's like,
we see
mega evolution.
Red is swimming towards Charizard, and we see the stone in Red's pocket start to glow, and we see the stone and Charizard start to glow, and they kind of come together in like a yin yang symbol. And there's a flash, and a big wave comes up, and Mewtwo turns around just in time to see Charizard coming out of the smoke and the water. And his wings have formed. He's got blue smoke coming from the corners of his mouth. The flame on his tail is blue, and Charizard gets back and faces Mew head to head, drops Red off.
And for those wondering which kind of Charizard this, my friends, is Mega Charizard X. So, I mean, there's 2 different versions. There's X and there's Y. And my personal favorite is the X because he just looks all sorts of badass, and he's blue flame and just black and just awesome. But
Nerd.
I love it.
And Red's like, "One more time, Fire Blast!" And Mewtwo has this moment of, "Oh shit!" And he just
That face was completely oh shit.
and he takes it, and he's standing there, and he's got his arms like in a defense pose, but you can tell like it stung him because he's kind of shaking a little bit. And Red has a moment we've all had trying to catch Pokemon. Is this enough? And he throws out Ultra Ball. Oh, yeah, an Ultra Ball, and it shakes once, but it busts out. He's like, "Oh shit!" And
And then he he tells Charizard to use Swift Attack, and Mewtwo's going in for a tackle and sees the Swift Attack. He's like, "Oh shit!" And fucking Mewtwo starts running. Like if you've ever seen anyone run, like he's running and he's running around blades, and the Swift Attack is going in, and it fucking hits him, and Mewtwo's like, "Ah, god damn it!" And Red's like, "Charizard, go for it. Slash attack now." And then they start exchanging blows where it's just Charizard does a slash, and then Mewtwo goes in and does the Will Smith smack and goes back. And then Charizard goes back in and goes, "I'm going to slash you, slash." And then Mewtwo's like, "Will Smith smack, smack." And we get a flashback to Charizard learning how to use slash, and he's like, "Charmander, you've become really strong." And he's like, "It's been a long journey, but let's finish here." And then he's like, "Give him the final mega punch." And Charizard's like, "Ah!" And he goes in, his hand glows, and just boom, just right in the chest. And Mewtwo goes flying back into a pillar, and Mewtwo is like, "Ah, shit, I'm done." And freaking Red throws another Ultra Ball, and the Ultra Ball falls down, and it's wobbling back and forth. Will he catch it? Will he catch it? And then he caught it. He's like, "We did it! We caught it! The 150th Pokemon! Yes!" And Doug, take the wheel, my brother.
And Charizard gives and he reverts back to his normal form, and they meet heads, and it turns into like a like a cave drawing style, and we just see the love between Pokemon and trainer, and then we get another flash of the save screen, and we see 8 badges. We see the 150, and now it's 35 hours and 46 minutes, and he saves like any good player should. Free, and
Could you imagine catching Mewtwo and forgetting the save?
getting the save. I would never play another Pokemon game in my life. And we're at looks like we're at Oak's house, and Oak, his assistant, Blue, and Red are having a meal, and it looks like they're at the dessert phase. And um, you know, Oak's like, you two really did your absolute best, and um, he's like, with all the information, the ultimate Pokédex I've always dreamed of is finished. And Blue still can't get over it. He's like, if only I captured Mewtwo, I would have been the champion. Yeah, well, shit happens. And
Yeah, you're just stuck with 149 as Red has 150, and you're not going to get 150 because freaking Mewtwo is a one of a kind.
and Red kind of gets his look, and he starts looking down at his cheesecake, and he's like, Mewtwo was born from the Pokemon Mew, right? And
The whole table cast. Ah.
he's like, that means there's still Mew. And out of the corner of the cabin, we see Mew fly back or fly by the window, and that's right. And
And that's it. That's the end of Pokemon Origins. So there was no final scene. There was no nothing. There we does Red end up catching Mew? Well, I mean, we don't know.
don't know.
But bro, so we are finished, and with this, so not comparing this series to the main arc, but comparing it as a special to Arceus. What would you give this out of 5 stars? And
I mean,
like comparing the series and then comparing this episode.
well, I mean, this episode's probably a 4. Um, you know,
I
kind of
agree.
like you said, we did get a full battle at the beginning. It was a little longer, so we got a little bit of a bonus point there. Um, Comparing it to Arceus, I probably would have to give the nod to this just because of the nostalgia feels and how gamified it felt. The save screens at the beginning and the end. Um, Flashbacks talking about getting bikes and fishing rods and being given a Lapras and being able to choose one of the Karate Master's Pokemon, and the end credits, you're goddamn, you're in like a dot matrix screen, and it's just got all the like the nostalgia feels.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I would give this a nice 4 stars. I do give the nod to this over Arceus. Um, I think it would have felt a little bit better if Arceus was made in English, but it wasn't. Um, and the fact that this one had just a month turnaround from it being in Japan and coming here to the US. I think it would have been a night. I think they should have released the Arceus in English when Pokemon Legends Arceus came out.
Yes.
I think it would have been pretty cool to get that, especially when they're using the main arc people. So they're using people from Pokemon mass or Pokemon Journeys or Pokemon Master Journeys, and it's not like it's just some off thing. Like they're using the actual people. Make it in English. I mean, I don't see how much it would have hurt. I mean, they could have done the same thing, released it on Amazon Prime, or maybe gave you a code when you purchase the game to where you have to purchase the game in order to be able to watch the video, punch in a code online, and you can watch the episodes. Do something like that, like an incentive. But
You ain't wrong.
so, but outside of that, I want to fully thank everybody for listening to these 4 episodes. We're going to be back to our normal broadcasting session starting next week, where you're going to get one of our regular episodes. Most likely, it's going to be an Orange Islands episode for next week. I'm not quite sure because right now we're kind of recording out of order right now, so you're going to get an episode next week, but it's going to be something back on our regular schedule. But do you have anything else to add before we sign off this week,
No,
Doug?
this was just super fun to go through these 4 episodes and get the throwback feels and feel like you were watching the reality of the game.
Absolutely. And I do want to throw out there, because I said it in one of the episodes, I'm not sure which one I said it, but for the next special, everybody, let us know what you would like us to review as a special, and we will be taking those into consideration. We're probably going to take about a month off from doing specials to kind of mow through a few more episodes of our regular series. But we will do another special at some point pretty soon. If not, I'm sure we're coming up to a movie pretty soon for the Orange Islands, because I believe they have one with Tracy. But yeah, they do.
They do, yeah, they do.
I think it's the Lugia movie, Pokemon the movie 2000 is what I believe.
Yes.
So I believe, I believe we're coming up to that as well. So we have a lot on our plate, everybody. So be patient. We are taking into consideration, and we will let you know way in advance what the special is that we're going to be doing. But outside of that, go ahead and give your goodbye, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
And this is Wrestling Chris G telling all of you we'll be back to our normal schedule next week. And thank you for listening, everybody. Have a good night.